Welcome to Tangled and Splattered, where we don't worry about coming apart at the seams right now because we have our pumpkin spiced everything. Today's project was inspired by Halloween. I used to have an orange dress that I would only wear in October for some reason. Eventually, I gave that dress away because I really just couldn't justify the closet space for something I'd only wear 4 or 5 times a year. This year, I decided I wanted to make myself a pumpkin or Halloween themed scarf with orange and black. I wear a lot of black and know that I can justify storing a scarf that I'll wear every day of October. Here you can see the three different yarns that we're using. We have the peaches and cream black that we have been using lately. We just use it on our tote bag. And then we also have two different types of cotton orange knit and crochet yarn. Details for those are in the description. The lighter orange has a softer texture, and I like how the two oranges look together because it seems to give it dimension, just like if we were doing an acrylic painting where we don't blend the colors before we put them on the canvas. Other materials that we use are a 6 millimeter crochet hook and our pumpkin spice cold brew for seasonal blessings. And lastly, of course, at the end, we'll need a clippers to cut off our loose ends before we tie it all together. So first you saw that I started by finding the ends of each of the orange yarn skeins. I do prefer the method of pulling the yarn end from the inside of the skein instead of the outside. Sometimes that means that your yarn pukes up a bunch of yarn at the beginning and you have to go through that puke to find the yarn end, which also kind of reminds me a little bit of carving pumpkins, where you have to scoop out the inside of the pumpkins to make your beautiful jack-o'-lanterns. After finding the ends of the yarn, we put both of those together, both of those oranges together, and start crocheting our chain. Now, the next question is, how long do you need to crochet the chain? And there is a great method that I use, and it is called How Long Do I Want It? So first, you ask yourself, how long do I want it? You'll want to crochet a little more than that, like maybe 5 or 10 more chains. And if you want it to wrap around a couple of times, then you'll probably want it longer for that too. For me, I crochet the chain until I can put it on my neck like a necklace, and I measure how low it fits on me. So I like a nice loose scarf because I can wear a loose scarf in a lot of different ways. So I usually want it to measure down to my midsection of my body. Some scarves are meant to fit more like a cowl neck, so really you just want to measure it based on how you want it to fit you. When we crochet things for ourselves without a pattern, it is a bit of a trial and error game. And the great thing about crocheting is if you don't like it, you can always pull on the strings and undo it and change it later. For an infinity scarf, some people will try to keep the chain going in one direction and keep track of that, and then do the one twist and connect the ends of the chain. When it comes to projects like this, I just have a really hard time keeping track of what's up and down for the chain well enough. So I find that method doesn't work well for me. Instead, I go back over the chain with either a single or double crochet across the whole row. Either one works depending on how you want your scarf to look. I find that to be much easier to keep track of the directions of the scarf. And then when you get to the end of the double crochet, you can lay it out flat, bring the ends together, and make that single twist on one end in order to connect the two ends. I will check my work several times because I never really trust myself doing it right the first or second time. This makes me think about when I was in college. I took a math class where we learned about Möbius strips and how it is a three-dimensional shape with only one side. We did a lot of different things to the Möbius strip to test different theories. And one thing that stuck with me was that it has to be exactly one twist on the one side or one end of it for it to work properly. Anything else changes the properties of the Möbius strips. So this is commonly called an infinity scarf, and I've been calling it an infinity scarf, but I do prefer to call it a Möbius scarf. So after checking my work several times and finding the ends and twisting the one side, and it's time to connect those two ends together, you'll see here that the way that I connect the two ends together is actually by using a double crochet stitch. But I use the last loop of the chain I was working on, just like I normally would, and then I also poke it through the loop of the side that we're connecting it to at the bottom of that. Then we would normally chain one and continue our work, but here what you'll see me do is that I want to connect the black yarn in. So as I'm ready to do the chain one, it's going to be transitioning from the 2 orange yarns to the black yarn. I also want to note that what you're watching me do is in real time. I am double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking this work because I really want this scarf to turn out. I was very excited about making my little pumpkin scarf to wear for the Halloween season, and I really want it to be in that, perfect Mobius shape. So this is the part of it where I'm doing that double, triple, quadruple checking to make sure the scarf is directionally um, correct. So here we're connecting those 2 ends. You're seeing that I'm poking it through the one side, I'm poking it through the other side, and I am going to be using that for that double crochet stitch to connect both of those sides together. And then when I get to the top, you'll see me poke through the other end of the double crochet on the side we're connecting to and pull it through all of the loops. And now we will start with that chain one, but then what we really want is to do the chain one with the black yarn so that we can switch over to the black yarn. So here we are going to add the black yarn in. And you can see here as I'm getting the black yarn in here in the crochet, when I'm going back and forth with colors like this, like the black and orange and black and orange, I often don't like to cut and tie in the ends. I'm perfectly okay having a seam that isn't perfectly aligned to only the colors of the row. So what I will do is I will use both colors at the seam as I transition from black to orange generally. I also have mentioned that because I don't like having to tie in the ends, I will crochet it in while I'm crocheting, and that method works for me. Um, Other folks have different methods for tying in the ends, and that works for them. So you can see it here as I'm switching to black. I'm also choosing for this row to be a single crochet instead of a double crochet. I just want to reinforce the strength of the center of this Mobius scarf and create a nice border to start. You'll notice for every row, because this is the shape of a Mobius strip, that it really takes 2 rounds of the scarf to come back to the starting point. So this scarf will have kind of a symmetry coming out from the center. As you're going, you may also see that the yarn balls or the yarn skeins that you're using may need to be pulled through the work for each row when you're working on that Mobius strip and you get through an entire round, kind of like it's 2 rounds really, but you get back to the starting point for that row. The yarn ends up on the other side of your work than what you started. And if you leave that unattended, it could cause some tangles. If you want to reduce those tangles or some of that kind of pulling as you're going, then you just pull the yarn through the center of your scarf. It's fine. All right, we did a little zoom action there. When we get back to connecting the start of the black row of single crochets, we want to transition again back to our 2 orange yarn strands. So you'll see here how I pick that up for this transition is really just pulling that chain crochet through in just orange. I realized that partway through making the scarf that I do prefer with the color changes back and forth like this, that I like to have both colors on the chain because I think it works better with blending in the seam. Unfortunately, I forgot this until a couple rows in when I wasn't filming. So here, what you'll see, it looks like it's supposed to be like a clean transition between the colors where each row has just that one color. whatever method you like is fine. Do what works for you. So for this third row here, what I'm doing is I'm going to do a double crochet pattern where I crochet 2 orange double crochets, I chain 2, I skip 2, and then I crochet 2 orange double crochets, chain 2 and skip 2. And you just keep doing this across the entire row until you get back to the beginning. You crochet 2, you chain 2, you skip 2, crochet 2, chain 2, skip 2, until you get around back to the other side again and connect to the beginning. So this kind of starts to make a pattern, and that pattern we end up using in the next row when we go to change the color back to black again. I did skip filming several rows, but changing the colors back and forth for every row. In the next few rows, what we end up doing is our 2 double crochets where we had previously had a chain 2, and we chain 2 over where we previously had done our 2 double crochets, just going back and forth for each row like that until it's about as wide as you want it. Remembering you can always undo it if you don't love it. There are no rules that say once you have completed a project, it must forever be in that form. You can make projects, you can undo them, and you can make other projects several times with the same yarn. I've seen cake decorating videos that do this. They decorate the cake, make the video, and then they will reuse the same cake, or maybe it's a fake cake, and they decorate another one. I think it's so great if we're able to reduce waste by reusing materials several times. And this cotton yarn feels like it would be able to be reused for several projects if I decided I wanted to take it apart. What you see here is after going back and forth with the colors for 5 rows with that same pattern, it really looks like 10 rows because it's a Möbius scarf, but it's really only 5 rows. I chose to do a single crochet in black all the way across that last row. And then I decided that for the final round of orange, I wanted to include another fun math concept. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to let you figure it out, what the pattern is, but it is a mix of double crochets and bubble crochets. That's right, I called it a bubble crochet. We talked about bubbles in an earlier video. There may be a better technical name for it. I'm not actually sure what it's supposed to be called, but I'm going to call it a bubble crochet here. So it's very similar to a double crochet, but you pull the yarn through and wrap it around your hook 4 times before you finally pull your last yarn loop on the hook and pull it all the way through all of the yarn loops. And then you end the bubble crochet with a single crochet. I'll give you a hint on the pattern. It is embedded in the double crochets that are between the bubble crochets. So you'll see me counting in this part of it a lot over and over again for those double crochet stitches to make sure that I'm getting that pattern right. I usually don't like counting my stitches, but sometimes if I have a fun little thing that I want to put in there, I will go ahead and count those stitches. But the reason you see me counting it several times over and over again is because I can't seem to keep track of it. That is why I don't like counting the stitches. I can't remember the numbers long enough to stay on track. And when I'm counting, I usually lose track of what number I was on when I go to the next one for keeping on going with counting. So instead, I just end up counting it about 50 times every time I'm trying to count something like this for a fun pattern. And then eventually, when I run out of room for the pattern here, I will just do bubble stitches all the way through until I get back to the start of the row. And then I finish the whole thing off with a single crochet with the black yarn. And when we get back to the end, you'll see what it looks like. I really just love how it looks at the end. This is a scarf that I had a lot of fun making, and I love how it looks. I also really enjoy those bubble crochets, and I wanted to incorporate them into this project for 2 reasons. The first reason was I thought it would be like having cute little pumpkins in there. Originally, I was just going to do pumpkins all the way across, but decided to incorporate a fun math concept in there. The second reason I wanted them is that these little pumpkins, these little bubble crochets, can kind of be like a fidget for me. So I really enjoy feeling the little bubble crochets when I'm wearing this scarf. If you're going to do a whole row of the bubble crochets, keep two things in mind. One, you'll want to know that it does take a lot more yarn, so you need to have plenty of yarn available in order to do a whole row of bubble crochets, because it's really like doing 2 rounds of those bubble crochets. And you also want to remember that you need to skip a stitch for every bubble crochet that you make, because you end on that chain one. That chain one, you need to skip the stitch over. And that's in order to make sure that the scarf will keep its shape. Lastly, I wanted to share that sometimes we don't always have all of the right material handy. And when I was recording this, I didn't have my clippers handy. And I know I'm not showing you this yet. We're getting closer to the end, but we're not quite there yet. Um, there's ways that we can make do without all of the right materials. And there's something else that works really well for clipping things that I happen to have very handy, so I didn't have to go to another room to grab my clippers. And the thing that I used today was a nail clippers. That's right, I used nail clippers to cut the ends of my yarn. You can judge me if you want to, but it worked. And now I have a beautiful pumpkin scarfed Möbius strip that I've gotten so many compliments on since I've been wearing. I hope you like this video, and if you want to see us paint a pumpkin next, please give us a follow, and I would love to hear what else you would like to see me create. Happy pumpkin spice season!